I could see people looking around, but they were scanning all over. They weren't looking in any specific place. There was one person with binoculars on the deck of the 100-footer, and he was looking down at the first and second floors. I couldn't imagine it would be very easy since he was essentially still staring into the sun. Maybe that's what they had been waiting for, the sun to get up on the horizon a little bit. I didn't know. Either way, at least I knew the sun wasn't going to be glinting off my glass to give away my location. I decided to put my binoculars away anyway because it started to make me feel self-conscious. I always imagine like in the movies where the two people in binoculars locked eyes. I'd only been up for a few seconds, but it felt like an eternity when you were doing recon. I looked over to make sure I had line of sight with eyes, and I did. He looked back at me, and I made an okay sign back to him. He made a thumbs up back to me, and I pointed to my eyes and then motioned back down to the water, and he nodded. When I poked my head back up, the pirates were within 500 meters. It would be any minute now at their pace. We popped our heads up again, and it was 400 meters, then 300. This was the hardest part because they were so close. They stopped at 300 meters and seemed sort of confused. At this point, we didn't poke our heads up any longer and just listened. There seemed to be some sort of debate going on. I imagine the debate being that nobody wanted to go first and nobody actually wanted to board the vessel. That was pretty funny. I had to stop myself from cracking up for a second. In a perfect scenario, we actually had more than enough ammo to take all of them out. There was probably at most 25 to 35 of them. We had more than enough ammo for that, but realistically, if they were all as locked and loaded as I was, they could theoretically be carrying around 10,000 rounds of ammo between them. Granted, that was probably a little extreme because some of them were probably carrying AKs, which were a little heavier, but it's just as likely that some of them could be carrying ARs and 8 mags, or even 10, and if each of them had a full-size sidearm on them with 5 mags, it was really easy to get that ammo count with 30 guys or so. So while it seems like me carrying 300 rounds in mags is a lot, and having a little extra in my bag to reload, it isn't an absolute joke. It is an absolute joke what I'm going up against. Yet here they are, hanging out at 300 meters, again. In actuality, I could hit them at 300 meters, I just don't want to in this case. A few of my friends back home with their bigger rifles would have been done by now with this already. However, if I started engaging them now, they would just back off and I wouldn't have much effect. Then my battle buddy on the other side would be completely ineffective. We need to draw them into the kill zone. Sometimes that means playing dead through the first stage until we can get the bad guys. Until the bad guys get to the second stage. That way we can bring our full strength to bear all at once. So, they are at like 300 meters still, debating on who's going to go first and who's going to try to board the boat. And even if they do make it past that zone, you'd think they would have planned this out already ahead of time. Apparently all they did was rush everyone together to come assault the yacht with no plan. Now that they're here, they're having second thoughts. Then out of nowhere we hear a gunshot from out near the ships and a splash in the water. I suppose that means the issue was resolved. Within moments I hear the engines are having a lot of cheering, and then they breach the final 300 meter mark. I feel comfortable at this point poking my head up to look, and they are quickly closing the gap to 250 meters. Around 100 meters is when I was going to open up, I imagine. I start to search for targets and see that the 8-foot boats each have a rifleman on board but no scopes. The 20-foot boats each have a rifleman, one of which has a scope. The 100-footer has a spotter and several riflemen with scopes. My only hopes were that those scopes were just for show and that they weren't actually trained in precision shooting in the ocean. We would find out soon, though, because I felt like the pirates were getting in Eye's comfort range. I just needed to make sure I was choosing a target that he probably wasn't shooting. I picked a target on the left, 20-footer. He seemed to be quite alert and looking around as if quite determined. I didn't like that at all. Hopefully Eyes had found someone similar on his side. I slowly and carefully got my rifle ready, flicked my lens caps off at the front and rear of my red dot and turned it on. I flicked my safety off with my finger off the trigger and got on my target and inhaled. As if on cue, a shot rang out to my right and I opened up on my target. My target, instead of looking at me, had been looking in completely the wrong place, then looked over to where Eyes was. That made sense to a novice. That's where he heard the shot. That was a rookie mistake, though. Sorry, last mistake. My shot was a clean hit and got him center mass. He went down. Since I was in the vicinity, I got the rest of the boat's occupants as well. Instead of them trying to aim where I was to cover their friends going down, they all had to scramble to go to his aid. I heard Eyes to the right of me shoot several more times in succession. I wasn't sure if he was hitting. It was good if he was, but he was going to do good work no matter what. I needed to give him cover fire to make sure they weren't getting a line on him. I quickly scooted back across the line a bit, so I wasn't in exactly the same spot, and then cover fired on the large boat. They would be sweeping the area trying to find fire to direct. I couldn't let them get a bead on Eyes. Eyes emptied his first mag and ducked down to reload. That was good timing. Instead of firing indiscriminately at the large boat, I went back to the left side to check on the 8-footers that were over there. There were 2 8-footers left on my side and 4 jet skis. I started shooting at one of the 8-footers, but I found them harder to track and hit. I felt like it was because they had sped up their boat or because of the adrenaline, I wasn't sure. Eyes popped back up in a new spot and had resumed firing a new mag at this point. With the opportunity available, I dumped the rest of my mag into one of the 8-footers, then quickly reloaded a fresh mag. That left me with 5 full spare mags remaining for my AR. Eyes had 4 full spare mags remaining for the 9mm. When I popped back up, I saw the 8-footer I was shooting at decided to turn around and head in the wrong direction. I immediately got a bead back on the lead 100-footer and opened back up. It wasn't a moment too soon because I started taking fire from them. It was missing me, but it was close enough to where I was sure they weren't guessing. Probably stopped firing into the empty shadowy portions and realized we were higher. However, the rounds were only zinging overhead for now. So once I got a few shots at the 100-footer, that made the incoming shots stop. I was very thankful for that. It gave me a few seconds to scan the ship and try to find the long-distance scout. I didn't see him, but I saw someone pointing towards me, so he got rounds sent in his direction, and he went down. Hopefully that would discourage people from pointing at me during this engagement. I heard Eyes sending more rounds at targets as well, and I know they were closing within 150 meters now. They would be able to board very soon. I still couldn't find the target I wanted on their ships and decided on a gamble. I dumped the rest of my second mag onto their ship into where I estimated the bridge was. Maybe I could get the ship stopped or slowed down or something, or maybe I could hit the captain or someone else in there. I didn't know, but I had to try to slow that ship down. It could have the bulk of the boarding crew in it that wasn't on the 20-footers. I emptied my second mag, dropped down as I dropped the mag, then slammed in my third mag. 4 spare mags left for my AR. The pirates still weren't coming up from their cover and concealment. That's another thing about 5.56 ammo. It doesn't go through material very well. The large calibers would absolutely be shredding their boats right now, especially if I had a shotgun with rifled slugs, but I didn't come out here thinking I'd be trying to stop a 100-foot boat. As I started dumping my third mag into the 100-footer, trying to call their bluff, I heard Eyes run empty. He ducked down, dropped his second mag, and slammed in his third mag. Eyes popped up to a new spot to renew the defense of his ship, attempting to repel the pirate invaders. He had 3 full spare mags remaining for the 9mm. I continued dumping rounds, but tried to go slower. Nobody was dumping rounds on me, so time to figure out my targets more methodically. So I just kept pounding rounds downrange into where I thought the control boards would be for the 100-footer. It might sound like a long time, but when adrenaline is going and it feels like an eternity, you really pull the trigger fast. I was pulling the trigger several times a second, putting a lot of bullets into the front of that ship. I had to slow it down, but it was a challenge when I got laser focused on stopping the boat.